Hey, what's up, everybody? AJ Kasad here, and today I'm doing the part two of last week's episode on client retention, how to keep your clients for longer and decrease churn and make your agency more profitable. So, if you missed last week we did the part one of this. If you missed that, I would definitely start and go and watch that first because everything today will kind of build on that. But definitely check that out. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. So just recap what we covered last week. We covered why client retention and optimizing your churn is so important, and all of the unexpected ways it helps your business grow and increase profitability. We talked about how really like retention is half results and half relationships, right? So biggest learning I've had in my journey on this is it's not enough just to do good work for clients. You have to also put work into the relationship, the customer service side of things, and the communication, right? That's really half the battle when it comes to increasing your client retention and having clients stay longer and pay you for more stuff. And then breaking down the two of those aspects in terms of the actual client results and how to do good work, we talked about 6 tips on how to just deliver better work for your clients and make them happier and just get better at your craft. Now today, where we left off is what we're going to talk about is the other half of the battle, which is the relationship, the communication, and really the whole client management side of things, right? So what I would first say is that it all starts before onboarding, right? So when you think about client retention, client management, having great, customer service communication, most people think about onboarding first, which is extremely important, but it actually starts one step earlier, right? It all starts before onboarding, during the sales process. So it's all about setting up clear expectations. This is really like one of the most important factors in client retention. The tendency is to oversell people and overpromise. This is what most agencies, what most salespeople do, right? Is they overpromise because they get excited and it's easier to make the sale if you do overpromise, right? But what I'd rather do is underpromise, right? I'd rather undersell myself. I'd rather downplay the results we're going to get. I always give a buffer room on the timelines. If I know something takes us 3 weeks, I'll tell prospects it takes us a month. So I always look for ways to actually undersell myself and undersell our company. And it sounds counterintuitive, right? But just bear with me. So what happens is, like if you oversell them, yes, you might get the sale. But if the client comes in with super high expectations and they leave in a month or two because you didn't meet those expectations, does that really help you? Like most agencies I've consulted or worked with, as well as my own agency, I've found that most of the first month or two is not very profitable. You have so much of that upfront work to onboard a new client. So if a client doesn't come in and stay longer than a month or two, or if they churn quickly, it really doesn't benefit your business that much. You're not really like making that much of a quick buck out of it, right? The goal is always to have long-term clients. So when you overpromise, you just set yourself up for someone to churn. Plus, it just puts a lot more pressure on you and your team, right? It makes it harder to deliver and just more stressful, right? So always underpromise. It's just much better. And this is what's going to help your clients stay longer, because really expectation equals reality, right? This was a quote from one of my old account managers. She would always say that people don't care what happens to them. They care what they expected to happen and if that happened, right? So it's not, people don't always care about the reality. They care about how their reality matched their expectations. So let me give you an example. At Revenue Boost, we're a outbound agency. We build cold email campaigns that generate leads for B2B companies, right? Lots of other agencies as well. But if I tell a prospect, or if I tell a client that we're going to generate them 20 new leads in the first month, and then we generate them 20, well, they'll be happy for sure. But they're not going to be ecstatic. They're not going to tell their friends. They're not going to be like, asking what else they could buy from us, right? But they'll be happy. We'll at least have met their expectation. But if I told that same client that we're going to get them 10 leads in month 1, and then we get them 20, they're going to be ecstatic. They're going to be like, wow, these people did double what I expected of them, right? And they're going to definitely give me referrals and, stay for a really long time, right? So in both scenarios, the result was exactly the same, but the expectation was different, right? And this is such an important principle, right? Because again, people don't care what happens to them. They care about if what happens to them matches that expectation they had, right? And really, you're the one setting the expectation. You or your sales team are the ones creating the expectation in the client's mind. So create it in a way that sets yourself up for easy wins. When you underpromise, it's so much easier to satisfy clients and over-deliver and exceed their expectations. And everything's just a lot easier. Not only do they stay longer, but they're just more fun to work with because there's not that like extremely high pressure and bar you have to live up to that you created, right? So resist the tendency to oversell people and overpromise, underpromise, and then you set yourself up to overdeliver and exceed their expectations and keep clients for much, much longer. And I know some of you might be thinking, hey, well, AJ, what if I underpromise and I'm so conservative that I actually miss out on some sales? Like, what if some people don't buy because of that? First of all, if that did happen, then so be it, because those are the types of clients who wouldn't buy because you didn't overpromise them, or the types of clients that would churn anyway, right? So like, it's better anyway. But what I'm here to tell you is you probably won't lose any sales at all. Because what I've found is that really if you overpromise someone in the sales process, they don't usually believe you anyway, right? Like, people have always been sold these big dreams or big claims by other, agencies, freelancers, consultants, right? And when you give someone really pie in the sky expectations and super optimistic goals, they usually don't believe you anyway. They're already skeptical, right? So it's not really helping your case anyway. And when you underpromise, the opposite happens. When you give someone very, very conservative expectations and you underpromise them and you're not giving them some insane, goal that you have to live up to, or some insane timeline like, oh my God, we'll do this in a week, when you know that it might take you 3 or 4 weeks, right? Then they trust you more because they can tell you're honest, right? And people like to do business with people that they trust, people that they feel are honest. So it actually gives you a lot of credibility when you're underpromising. So it actually could even help your sales. I've definitely had a lot of clients go with me purely because they just felt I was honest, authentic, and I wasn't bullshitting them, right? So when you underpromise, it actually, in some cases, can help you win more business. Let me give you a couple examples of this. So I already shared one around how, like, with timelines, I give some buffer room. So if I know something will take us a month, I'll say it'll take us a month and a half, right? And that's just good to do anyway, because sometimes things just, with timelines, like, sometimes unexpected things happen and things take longer. So that's also just another reason of giving yourself buffer room. But I try to find any opportunity to underpromise without, like, completely cheating on myself. Like, I'm not saying, like, make yourself seem like the worst service out there. Just at least resist the tendency to overpromise. So an example of this is, with our prospects, we give them an ROI forecast. So because we're selling a lead gen service, we'll give them a forecast on, so we have a spreadsheet on, how many leads we think we can get for them for their niche, how long it'll take. And then we plug in, okay, what is their average deal size? Like, how much is a sale worth to them? What is their average closing rate? And through all that, we factor in to show them, like, okay, this is what you can earn month 1, month 2, month 3 from our services, right? And it's not a promise, it's not a guarantee. It's just, this is a projection, right, that we're going to try to hit. And I usually make that really conservative. When we make those ROI forecasts for a prospect to show them how profitable they can be on our cold email campaigns, I'll knowingly make it less than I think we can do, right? So if I think that we can get this client 20 meetings a month, I'll put in the forecast 10 meetings or 12 meetings, right? So just as an example, right? And I'm always trying to just find an opportunity to kind of just give myself a little bit of buffer room so that I can exceed their expectations later. And also, I'll usually, in terms of timelines as well, I'll usually, tell prospects, hey, this might take a while to get results. I mean, like, look, we've had a lot of clients that in the first month of working with us, they've closed deals. We had one client that just closed 2 deals in their first month from our cold email campaigns, right? And already got a positive ROI. So of course it happens, but I never usually say that on sales calls. I don't like having my team say anything like that. We'll usually just, again, try to underpromise and say, hey, sometimes, like any marketing campaign, this could take a little bit of testing. It might not show great results in the first month. So if you didn't get an ROI by 3 months, what happens? Do you have the runway? Do you have the cash flow to keep this running? Or do you need to get like an ROI in the first month or 2, right? So I'll, ask people that about their financial situation. And if someone's like, no, I need to make money in this in the first month or 2, I won't take them on as a client, right? Because I just don't want to take that risk. And it's not even so much about what they say in terms of their financial situation. It's more about assessing whether they have a long-term view or whether there's someone who's just expecting really like quick results and it's a client that I think is going to have unrealistic expectations, right? And then it's at the same time, it's also just expectations for later, because let's say that the first month or 2 with a new client is a little bit slow, things are taking longer than they should. At least then they have that expectation, they won't be disappointed. Again, people are only disappointed if the expectation doesn't match the reality. So I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but this is really like one of the most important things when it comes to keeping, retaining clients and client satisfaction. Is everything's just a matter of, the expectations they have, which you set for them, right? So you want to set expectations around how everything works, how onboarding works, what's expected of them, right? Like, you don't want to take on a new client and then barrage them with tasks they have to do and they are not expecting it, right? Because that might frustrate them, right? So make sure you make it clear before they sign up what you're going to need from them. And this also makes it easier to prevent that, we've all had that issue where we have a client that just doesn't give us the things we need from them, right, to do our job. So you can handle that on the front end. And also set clear expectations around what's expected of you. How long things take, what are the milestones, what are the typical results they could expect, all of that. How does payment work, right? How like when do they have to pay every month, on the 1st, on the 15th, whatever it is, right? Be clear as possible about everything. And this is also a disqualification process. Like, as you could probably assume, when I was explaining before how we try to find ways to underpromise, or we show clients a conservative ROI forecast, this is a disqualification process for us, right? If I show someone an ROI forecast and if they react in a way that's like, oh, I need results quicker than that, or oh, I need way more results than that in the first month, then I'm like, okay, cool. Then we're not really a fit for you because I don't, that's not really possible or probable, right? So when you set really clear expectations on how your service works and the results they can expect, it gives you an opportunity to disqualify someone, right? Because if they're not okay with that, then it's better off that you didn't start working together. So you want to be crystal clear on what it's actually like to work with you before someone signs up. And then not only are you going to get better quality clients and you're going to screen out people that could have been nightmares, but you're also going to have clients stay with you for a lot longer because they just know how it works. They've agreed to it, and you have all these chances to meet their expectations and delight them, right? So yeah, super, super important. Now, that's all the stuff before onboarding, right? Next, let's talk about onboarding. So really, this is extremely important as well. Onboarding is crucial because it's really your first impression, right? If the sales call is like a first date, then imagine onboarding is like the first time someone comes to your house and they stay over and they really get to know like you and your life, right? And your house. So, this is really like onboarding is really when, they've heard these promises from you before at the sales call, but now they're actually seeing what it's like to work with you and have a relationship with you, right? So what I've realized is like, just because someone bought from you, just because someone said yes and handed you money on the sales call, that doesn't mean that they're your biggest fan now. That doesn't automatically mean that they don't have concerns. That doesn't mean they don't still have objections, right? Just because they bought from you doesn't mean they still don't, doesn't mean they like completely forgot about the objections they had before they bought, right? They might still be skeptical. They probably are still nervous, right? If anything, they're even more nervous at this point because, now they've just handed you money. So now they kind of have lost their leverage, right? Now they're really hoping that it goes well, right? So, and this is where buyer's remorse come in, right? This is why most people, after they make a big purchase, they'll be very likely to have regrets in the first couple of days, right? Or people are going to refund, like usually it happens right after someone buys something, right? Because then, they buy something, the fear, the doubt creeps in, right? So basically what you have to understand is people are in a very sensitive state of mind as soon as they buy your service. So the second someone pays and becomes a client of your business, the first 7 days should be just like immaculate, extremely, extremely organized, great communication. We're going to cover some just rapid fire tips, but overall, like just the first 7 to 14 days have to be just on point, right? Because again, that's your first impression. And really what you want to do is you want to remove the buyer's remorse and reinforce that, okay, yes, I made a good decision. That's what the person should feel like, right? Because again, they're still going to be skeptical and still going to be a little bit nervous because they just handed you a lot of money, right? So make sure that you just really turn them into a super fan just from the onboarding. And the cool thing is too, is that if you really knock out of the park with onboarding, and if the first 7 days of someone experiencing your business is great and it really meets their expectations and everything was like you guys did what you said you were going to do and everything worked out as planned, then when onboarding is really good, then the client can kind of relax, right? Like if you really do a great job with onboarding and give someone a great first impression of your business, then they can kind of relax. They're not going to be micromanaging you later as much or at all. Because now they can kind of just breathe and be relieved and know, okay, yeah, these guys are on point. I can trust these guys. I'm going to let them do their thing, right? But if you have really crappy onboarding or your communication is poor in the first week or two of working with someone and it's not really structured or everything's all over the place or whatever, if you just don't have good onboarding in the first week or two of someone working with you, then they're going to continue to be nervous, continue to be skeptical and feel like they have to kind of watch you like a hawk and check in on things so much, right? So this actually just makes the entire client relationship easier if you just nail that first impression and have great onboarding. So here are some keys to successful onboarding. First is continue laying out what's going to happen next. At every single communication point, from the sale to the onboarding call to the follow-up email to all the emails in between, always tell them, hey, here's what's going to happen next, and here's what we're going to do next, right? And here's the next communication, right? Here's the next meeting, whatever it is. You always want to feel like you're leading someone down the path and they know that there's a process, right? So I've had clients give us feedback like, wow, you guys really have a great process. Like you're always telling me the next step or what's going to happen next. It seems like you do this all the time, right? So yeah, if clients leave your communications, your emails or your meetings feeling like they don't know what's happening next and it's a mystery, then it creates uncertainty, right? And they don't know and then also they don't know to be prepared if you need something from them, right? So always continue laying out what's going to happen next and when the next communication is. And that makes people feel like there's really a structured process, right? Also, speed of getting things done. I mean, it's always a good practice to get things done quickly for your clients and meet deadlines, but it's especially important in those first 7 to 14 days, because of course that's when people are still a little bit skeptical and they're still kind of judging and observing you, right? So I always just try to be super, super fast in the first week or two with a new client. Everything we promise to do, we want to do it a day early, right? Speed of getting things done, responsiveness as well. I mean, and again, these are things where it's yes, it's always going to be responsive to clients, but be extra responsive, right? In the first week of them working with you, try to respond within an hour, right? And they're going to really feel okay, wow, these guys are just on point, right? Also make them feel welcome. We like to congratulate people after they've signed up with us. Again, you want to reinforce their decision. Just because they bought from you doesn't mean they're still not a little bit nervous, right? They still might be skeptical. So congratulate them, reinforce why they made a good decision. If they're going to be working with anyone else on your team, have someone in your team reach out. So we do this a lot on the coaching side of our business for when we work with agencies on their sales. Someone will join our Slack community and I'll have everyone from my team just reach out to them in a DM, just be oh, hey, welcome. So happy to have you here. And that makes people really feel like they're connected to you, they're building a relationship, and that you actually give a shit about them, which is really the most important thing, right? Try to find every opportunity just to make someone realize you give a shit about them, right? That's probably the most important tip here. But yeah, make them feel welcome. That's always nice. Introduce them to other people on your team. Also add value and try to over-deliver however you can. This is a good tip I got from Jordan, the other host of our podcast. So he always tries to make intros to clients. So when he takes on a new client for 8F, he'll try to just introduce them to random people that he thinks they should meet or could offer, or could help them in their business in the first week. Not even connected at all to the service he's delivering, but just some kind of extra way you can add value. So there could be, you could do that, or you could do similar things like that, where you can just kind of find some way to surprise them or delight them. That's always a cool thing to do. Well, what's something you can do in the first 2 weeks that someone didn't expect that will help them, right? So just add value as however you can, right? Also, just stay in communication. Don't let a whole week go by without updating them. If I haven't heard from a client in a little while, and if I haven't spoken to them, I'm always getting nervous. I'm always I want to check in and see where this person's at, make sure they still know I exist, right? Because here's what happens, right? If you're not, very good with client communication, or you have long periods of time go with where you're not talking to them, this might be normal. Maybe your team's doing a great job on your clients' deliverables and their campaigns or whatever it is you do for them. Maybe your team's maybe the work's going really well, so you don't feel like you need to talk. Well, still, it could be a problem, right? Because if you're not talking to your clients often, I'm not saying you need to meet with them every day or every week, right? I typically just do monthly meetings with our done-for-you clients, but we still at least keep in communication through email and all that, right? But here's what happens. If you're not talking to your clients often, then all they're going to see you as is an expense. They're going to forget you exist, right? You're not going to be top of their mind, and they're just going to keep seeing that charge happen every month, or however you bill your clients, if you do project-based, whatever. But they're going to keep seeing the payments come out of their account, and then they're going to keep slowly forgetting about all the value you're giving, right? Because when you're talking to them often, you can tell them what you're doing for them, show them all the wins, celebrate successes, right? And just then at least if they're communicating with you, they know that you're doing stuff and work's being done. But if they don't really know what's going on, if you haven't talked to them in a while and they just keep seeing their credit card get charged for the service, that's what kind of makes people start to question, hey, do I even need the service, or what's this about? Or, I haven't even talked to this guy in a while. Are they even doing a lot of work anymore, right? It's the same as if you look at your bank account and you see, we all are guilty of having so many software tools we don't even need, right? It's the same feeling when, if you look at your bank account and you see that you're paying for some software and you're I haven't even used that in a while, you're going to cancel it, right? So at least when you're staying in frequent communication, it gives the impression that okay, yeah, this team is busy, they're on top of it, they're doing stuff, and then they don't just see you as an expense, they actually see you as a person and a relationship, right? So really, really important. That's not the only reason, but that is one reason, right? It's just when people don't talk to you for a while, when you don't talk to your clients for a while, they can just kind of start to forget about the value you're giving, right? So make sure you stay in communication. I really never, as a rule of thumb, this could be very different for every business type. But for me, I don't like to let 2 weeks go by where I haven't spoken to a client. Not even over a meeting, just at least an email, quick update, how are things going, you need anything, right? And there's other reasons for this too. If you stay in communication, you can spot issues, right? So if let's say a client's concerned about something, right? They're not so happy with something on your service. If they don't have an outlet to talk to you, then that could just fester and sit there and get worse for a while, right? But if you're checking in often, once a week or whatever, then the minute that they're like unhappy with something, they can talk to you and you can fix it before it becomes a bigger problem or like some form of resentment, right? So yeah, it just keeps an open dialogue, which is just good for a lot of reasons. But yeah, stay in communication. And again, it just kind of gives the perception and impression that like you're busy doing stuff because you're just talking to them often, right? So your cadence might be different for every business, but I definitely definitely recommend, like, yeah, at least for me, if 2 weeks go by I haven't spoken to them, I want to make sure we're in touch for sure. But yeah, again, this is important to the whole relationship, but definitely onboarding, like update them as much as you can. Like even if you give them a daily update for onboarding, that's not too much, right? They don't have to, like, it doesn't have to be an essay, but even if it's just a quick, hey, here's what we did yesterday, that's going to really go a long way in the onboarding, right? So stay in good communication throughout the onboarding. And also complete everything according to timeline. This is just a matter of doing what you say you're going to do. So yeah, always do things on time when you promise them, because then you'll build a reputation for someone who does what it says they're going to do. Also with onboarding, try to make things easier on them. Like anything you can do for your client to make it easier for them or make less work for them, that's great. Obviously, clients know that when they sign up with you, they're going to have some stuff to do, some to-dos on their side, but see whatever you can do just to make their life easier. If there's any things that you need from them that maybe you can automate, or maybe you can just chat with one of their team members to get from them, just try to make things easier on them, right? It's not always ideal when they have a shitload of work on their plate after they've hired you, right? I mean, it's obviously expected, but see whatever you can to just make their experience a little bit easier and a little bit less work, and they'll appreciate it. Last tip on onboarding would be maintain the personal touch. So I'm a big fan of course, automating things with onboarding. We have a lot of our onboarding automated on both the consulting side and both our agency side. So we automate a lot of things, like for example, the day that a client's cold email campaigns get launched, we send them a video. Hey, here's what happened. Campaigns just launched. Here's what to expect next. Here's what the first month looks like, yada, yada, yada. So we definitely make use of videos and automation and automated reminders and things like that. But don't completely automate your entire client onboarding experience, right? Maintain that personal touch, right? Because if you automate everything, there's no relationship, right? So just, make sure whatever the point of contact is, if it's you or it's an account manager, make sure that they're checking in with some kind of like obviously personalized, customized communication and keeping that two-way dialogue. Automate things to make it more efficient, but don't automate everything. Keep that personal touch. People just want to feel like you care and you're thinking about them. So those are the tips for onboarding. Now, lastly, let's talk about after onboarding. So we talked about the importance of setting expectations in the sales process and under-promising. We've talked about onboarding. Now, what about after onboarding, right? I mean, first of all I'll say is if you just get the expectation setting right in sales, and if you really nail the onboarding, you really make the client have a phenomenal first 7 to 14 days with you and have amazing communication all throughout, like that's really like the 80-20 right there. Like if you just do that, you will keep clients for longer, they will refer you more people, and they will buy more stuff, right? So that's really the most important, but like focus on that first, and that's going to make a huge difference. But beyond that, here's some more tips for after a client's onboarded. How do you just improve the relationship and the client management over time? So I would say, every agency, really every business should have like a customer success SOP. Like what is the standard procedure for how you manage clients, how you manage relationships, how the communication works, all that, right? A couple things you want to be clear on. You want to be clear on how often do you meet with them, right? Like for our Done For You cold email agency, we meet with clients once a month, but I also give them my calendar link if they want to meet sooner to talk strategy or like new ideas or new offers they have or whatever. We meet once a month unless requested to meet, more frequently. And then also, it's not just about meeting for the sake of meeting. How can you make these meetings more effective, right? So like some agencies, they'll just hop on a meeting with a client, an update meeting, and just be like, hey, what's up? What do you want to talk about today? Right? And then it doesn't really give a good impression, right? And it's not really very productive. Now, of course, you want to have some time in your meeting with a client to just leave some like open space if they have something on their mind, right? But there should be structure for the meeting, right? Simple structure is talk about the past. Hey, here's what we did since we last talked. Here's what we accomplished. Talk about the future. Here's what we're working on next. Here's what we're trying to accomplish in the next month. And then try to share at least one quick win. Try to find one thing you can celebrate, one good thing that happened recently, even if it's small, just to make them feel like things are moving in the right direction. So past, future, quick win, and then leave some Q&A. Just they might have some things on their mind that they want to tell you about as well. So have a structure for your meetings, and if you have an account manager, give them the structure as well. And don't just have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. Have a meeting that's actually productive and makes the client feel like there's some structure happening, right? Also, as part of the customer success SOP, things you want to be clear on is you want to have clear reporting that shows the results you're getting. And if you're also not really in a business model where you have like tangible results or numbers assigned to what you do, like let's say you're providing creative services and you do like brand design or web design, right? It's not really about reporting. It's just about some kind of having the client have visibility over your progress, right? So if you're providing just static deliverables, graphic design, video editing, web design, brand design, whatever, something like that, at least have a place where the client can see your progress, right? Maybe it's a portal, right? Maybe it's a project management tool. Maybe it's an email once a week with, hey, here's the stage of the project we're at, here's where we finished. The point is you want the clients to know kind of where things are at so that they can check in on things without having to ask you or have a meeting, right? So yeah, clear, tangible visibility. Third thing is celebrate success. This is probably one of the biggest tips here, though at least the most important, is celebrate success as much as possible, even the really small things, right? So it's so important because, I mean, the example I shared last week where I had a client that we 10x their business, 10x their revenue, and then they left us. It was because I wasn't celebrating success. They didn't know how good the results we were getting were, right? Because I wasn't taking the time to educate them on like, oh, we achieved this, and this is actually really good, really above average for your industry, right? So your clients aren't the expert in your field, right? You are. So you want to show them what good is. You want to show them when something good happens, right? And really try to find the smallest wins, right? Because like, so for example, in my industry, right, we have a cold email agency. An example of a small win would be like, we got a good open rate, right? Our first campaigns are having a 70% open rate. That means we're not having deliverability issues, right? Or it could be the first lead. Every time we have this is an SOP in our company. Every time we get the first lead for our clients, even though it's only one lead, right? We email them and congratulate them, right? Oh my God, the first lead, this happened so quick. This is amazing, right? So we just try to find all these small wins. Like I think most of you listening to this or watching this probably celebrate the big wins when there's like a huge milestone, right? I think we all do that. But there's so many small wins that lead up to the big wins, so many little positive things that happen. And if you don't mention those to your clients, then you're missing out on an opportunity to impress them and delight them, right? So this could be an easy action item. Go and just write down all of the small like wins or accomplishments that might happen with an average client, and just make it a point to point those out, right? Because again, they're not going to know what success is, right? You're doing all these things behind the scenes, and you might know that they're good or they're helpful, but they have no idea, right? So you got to take the time to just point things out that you're doing, and just show them all the awesome stuff that you guys are doing and all the progress, right? So for example, like in my agency, we know that a 70% open rate is good. Our clients don't, right? And you probably experience this as well, right? Like anytime I show my clients metrics, they'll be like, well, what does that mean? Is that good? Is that bad? So you don't just show clients metrics without context. You want to show them, hey, this is the metric and this is above average and this is amazing. This means this is a good sign for this. Just, that line of thinking, right? So celebrate success, show them what good looks like, and even just try to find the small wins, right? Especially early on, right? Even if you can get a quick win. So examples of quick wins would be, with cold email, it's a little bit tough because when we set up a client's outbound campaigns, we need 3 weeks to warm up new emails and domains for them, right? So if we take on a new client today, the soonest we could send them emails is 3 weeks from now, right? So, I don't want our client to only feel like they're getting some kind of value 3, 4, 5 weeks later when they get their first lead. I want them to feel like they're getting value right from the start, right? So all of the good things, all of the things that we're accomplishing up until the campaign launch, like getting the emails and domains set up successfully, building their first prospect list that's a really good list of companies for them to target, right? Writing their first message, writing their first email, right? All of these are things that I can point out as quick wins, right? So I'll update our clients on all of these things. We'll update them on what's been done up to that first launch so they can see that good things are happening, the work's coming out good so far, and we're on pace for launch, right? So whatever your service is, what are some quick wins? What are some things that happen in the first 1 or 2 weeks of working with someone that you might think are small, but they might appreciate, right? Because yeah, that's a huge thing as well. Like just find a way to get people quick wins, especially if you're offering something like SEO where people don't really see tangible results for quite a while. There's a million things that happen before they see a huge increase in traffic that you can just point out and say, hey, we got this done. Hey, this thing that we did went well. Hey, we got this done ahead of schedule, right? Just find ways to point out quick wins. So yeah, like all of you guys listen to this, you're all doing a lot of great things for your clients, but most of them just don't even know what they are, right? And this could be as simple as a once a week email from you or an account manager with a recap and just shows them that things are moving in the right direction. So next is regular communication. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but yeah, don't let a ton of time go by without updates. I always like to just kind of keep clients in the loop, and if they're not reaching out with questions or concerns or updates, make sure you proactively reach out and just keep in touch. Which leads me to the next point: is be proactive, not reactive. Most agencies or service providers are reactive, meaning when a client has a complaint, they'll jump on the phone. When the client wants to call a meeting to talk about a new project or check on things or timing, they'll answer the email or jump on a meeting, right? So everyone's reactive, but being reactive is the standard. You want to be proactive, right? So an example of being proactive would be, let's say that I saw a client's campaign results drop, right? Let's say that I saw that, for the last week, the results significantly dropped from their marketing campaigns. If that happened, what I would do is I would proactively reach out to the client and say, hey, the results dropped a little bit last week. I just noticed that. Here's why I think it happened. My team are looking into it. We'll have a solution to you by the end of the day. And then we'll get back to them with, here's what we're doing next to fix it, right? I'm not saying like it has to be like this every week, but just if there's like a really serious, drop, for example, right? Or any problem really, right? Like if there's a problem, be proactive to point out. Here's a golden tip. If you can be the first one to always bring up problems, then you're winning, right? Meaning, don't wait for your clients to spot problems and then notice it, because that looks really poor on your part, right? If there's a problem with your service, right? If there's something that goes wrong, if your client notices it, then has to ask you, then what do you think that makes them think? That makes them think like, did these guys even know about this? Like, what would happen if I didn't say something? And that's what creates clients who feel the need to micromanage their agency, for sure. Like that's what it comes down to, right? So our team, we always try to notice any kind of problem that's happening with a client's project and then be the first to speak up. Because then when you speak up and say, hey, there's a problem that we found, here's why it happened, here's what we're gonna do to fix it, here's our next steps, I'll update you if there's anything else you need to know. They're not gonna be mad about the problem. They're gonna be like, okay, cool, these guys are on top of it, right? So that's just one example of being proactive, but yeah, just think for them, right? Think for your clients. Don't just wait for your clients to reach out with stuff they need or questions. Be proactive and update them on how things are going and what's next, right? So yeah, super, super, super important tip there. And related to that, just try to handle problems professionally and quickly, right? Like your clients know that problems are going to happen, right? And there's always, no matter what service you're offering to your clients, there's always going to be issues that happen, things that take longer than planned, problems, external issues that aren't even your fault, right? So problems are going to happen. That's part of business, right? But it's more about how you handle problems, right? Like most people don't lose their clients because of problems that happen with the delivery. They lose their clients because of how they handle the problems or how they fail to handle the problems, right? So again, if every time a problem comes up, you're the one to point it out and you give the client a clear update on here's what happened, here's why it happened, here's our plan to fix this, they're not going to worry about problems because they're going to know that, okay, you guys are on top of it, you're the experts, I trust you, right? But yeah, when there's problems and then you're not saying anything and you're just hoping they don't notice it, then that's what gets you in trouble, right? Next tip for customer success relationship management is invite their concerns. And this is also why it's important to keep in regular communication, keep in contact often, because if a client has a concern, you want to know it, right? If they're concerned about something, if they're worried about something, if there's just something they're confused about or just worried about in general, you want them to tell you, right? So if you're having a regular meeting, if you're checking in over email once a week, then at least they have a line open to tell you, hey, I'm worried about this. Hey, I saw this. Hey, I'm worried we're not on schedule. What do you think about this, right? But if you don't invite their concerns, right, and if you don't communicate often, then they might just sit with their concern and sit in doubt and then it gets worse and worse over time, right? So you always want to invite their concerns. And related to this, back to handling people's problems in a professional manner, when a client's concerned with you or they complain, don't get defensive, don't argue with them, because then they're not going to want to tell you their concerns in the future, right? So always thank them for their feedback, because then they're going to be more open with you in the future, and you want them to be open with you because you want to know what's going on so that you can understand how they feel about things and how you can help make them happier, right? So yeah, invite their concerns. Next tip is spend time shooting the shit. Just get to know them as people, right? I always like to take time on a client call just to chat. It doesn't have to be all business, right? I mean, I always pick clients that I like working with, right? And that my team would like working with. So spend time hanging out with them, right? I mean, if you're visiting their city, go visit them, right? And just spend time talking to them, right? Like, yeah, usually, I don't know, sometimes maybe even 5 or 10 minutes of a meeting. We might just chat, catch up. How's it going? How's the family? Whatever it is, right? How's business going beyond this project? Like, I'm curious, what are you guys working on this year? Whatever it is, right? Get to know them as people, because like we talked about earlier, the stronger the relationship is, the more that you guys are going to be able to get through it when there's a problem, right? Or there's something wrong with the project, right? So just build a relationship. The more that they like you, the more that they're going to keep you. And if things change in their company, right? Let's say they get bought out, they get a new owner, a new boss, whatever. They're going to fight to keep you if they really like you as a person, right? So yeah, build a relationship as well beyond just business. And related to that, a cool thing you can do is you can gift people, right? We usually like to give clients gifts, give them like a book or something, or even we made t-shirts as well, whatever it is, right? Like if it's like our top clients that, are worth the most to our business, we might go out of our way to make like some kind of custom gift just for them and mail to them at Christmas. So yeah, gifting is a great idea as well. Last 2 tips here is make promises, keep them. This is a really good tip from Alex Hormozi. I mean, I think you can probably see most of the things I'm sharing today follow the common thread of just like do what you say you're going to do and be reliable. Right? That's really what it boils down to. But Alex Hormozi always talks about this tip, and I really like it. Just make promises often and keep them. So he gives an example where let's say that someone's working with a client for the first 2 weeks, and rather than what most people would do is update that client at the end of 2 weeks with, hey, here's everything we did over the last 2 weeks. But what you could do instead is update them every day. Here's what we did today. Here's what we're going to do tomorrow, right? And then keep doing the same thing for those 2 weeks. And then now, instead of just one time where they heard from you and you updated them on stuff you did, it's happening 10 times. And every 10 times you're making a promise. You're saying, hey, we're going to do this for you this day, tomorrow, right? And then when you get back and you say we did it, then it's another time that you made a promise and fulfilled on it and show that you're reliable, right? And I'm not saying it has to be a daily update. This is just a silly example, or the example he gave. But the point is, make promises, keep them, right? And you can break up the bigger projects you do into smaller tasks and milestones and tell them, hey, we're going to do this by this date. Do it. Every time you do that, you build trust and credibility. And then last tip, I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I brought up the importance of getting quick wins. When a client buys from you, they want to get value quickly, of course. So if you're delivering some kind of service where it takes a long time before they actually really get their first like big milestone or like big win, try to find ways to kind of manufacture or create these smaller wins or milestones or celebrations earlier in the process, right? So yeah, make sure they have some kind of value or quick win in the first week, ideally. So that is all of my tips on expectation setting, onboarding, client management. And now let's really quickly talk about the inverse of this, right? So I just talked about all the things you can do to have a great customer success process. What would be the opposite of that? What do you want to not do, right? Because sometimes I find it's helpful to look at like the inverse, right? What not to do when it comes to keeping our clients. So if you want to keep your clients for less and churn more, what you would want to do is barely communicate, have no structure to your communication, have open-ended meetings, avoid discussing problems and hoping the client hasn't noticed, have unclear reporting or have no reporting at all, don't celebrate wins, don't point out when you do something good, and also don't take ownership of problems and place blame. This is what I've seen a lot of poor service providers do that have bad customer service. So this is what, if that helps you remember, that's kind of what not to do. If you're doing any of those things now, then you want to make sure to do the opposite of that. But anyways, those are all my best tips that I've learned. I'm still always learning more about this. There's obviously a lot to it. But really, that's the 80-20 right there. Like if you can just, set better expectations in sales, improve your onboarding, make the first 7 days, immaculate and very smooth, and have a good SOP, have a good procedure for how do you manage the relationship, how do you manage communication throughout. Everything's gonna be a lot easier. Your clients will stay longer, refer more people, and pay you longer. And of course, make sure you also at the same time are improving the actual results you get for clients and just taking the time to get better at what you do, and holding your team to a higher standard to be better at their work as well. So hope you enjoyed that. And also, definitely chat with Jordan. Jordan's team helps with client fulfillment and operations. So if you didn't already know, I help our agencies in our community with lead gen and sales, so the front end of their business. We don't really help clients so much with operations. But if you were listening to this and you wanted someone to actually just help you build out some really awesome operations and just implement some of these systems for customer success and fulfillment and churn, his team does some great work there, so definitely chat with him on that. But anyways, hope you enjoyed this. Let me know your feedback, and I will see you next week.